Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "Those who stay away from the election think that one vote will do no good. 'Tis but one step more to think one vote will do no harm." Unfortunately, in our society today, there are many people who believe that their one vote will do no good in an election. If not just from pure laziness or lack of knowledge surrounding the actual voting process, thousands of U.S. citizens do not participate in voting for many different types of elections. According to the National Voter Turnout in Federal Elections, in 2008, approximately 231 million registered citizens were of age to vote, and only about 132 million actually voted. That means only 56.8% of registered voters actually participated in voting in the presidential election in 2008. These statistics are evident of the fact that many U.S. citizens do not partake in voting for elections, whether it be at the city, state, or federal level. For many, they might decide not to vote for lack of knowledge regarding candidates and the voting process. For others, pure laziness may be the reason. No matter the reason, it is important as U.S. citizens that we take advantage of the rights our forefathers founded for us and become more involved in voting. It is essential that as U.S. citizens of the U.S., we partake in any type of voting election because it is our responsibility and duty as citizens, even young citizens, to do so, and is one of the only ways for us to have a say in the politics and or organizations of our country. In order for you all to best understand our responsibility as citizens of the U.S. to vote, I feel it is necessary to define some key ideas about voting and how voting, especially for women, is something we should never take for granted. In my opinion, voting is something many citizens deter and shy away from because they are not knowledgeable about how important voting truly is. The concept of voting came about with the establishment of our country by our forefathers as a right and a duty to us as citizens of this country. When talking about citizenship, I'm referring to the state of being vested with the privileges, rights, duties of a citizen, and when referring to voting as a duty as citizens, I'm referring to something that one is expected or required to do by moral or legal obligation, according to Webster'sDictionary.com. Voting is and was part of the democratic way of life. Establishment of voting through the democratic system by our forefathers makes voting an American tradition, a tradition that can only be continued to be passed down from generation to generation if people choose to participate. Recently this year, I participated in the great tradition of voting by voting in a student senate election held by the University of Kansas. Although I was not fully educated on the background of all the candidates, I saw it as my responsibility and duty as a student to KU to vote in the election. I can only wish that more citizens saw voting as a pertinent part of being a citizen of the U.S. or as a member of a group or organization, because it is a long-standing tradition established by our country. I also feel it's important for people to vote because we work so hard to achieve the right to vote across all genders and races. My great-grandmother, Nana Brooks, was a strong advocate of suffrage, which means the right to vote, and marched to obtain the women's right to vote. This is a picture of Nana Brooks and the suffragettes marching for the right to vote. As told by my grandmother, Barbara, Nana Brooks used to speak of her times as a suffragette as a struggle, but eventually a rewarding experience with the ratification of the 19th Amendment. Based upon the stories of her grandmother's experience, my grandmother, Barbara, has always instilled in us the need to vote, no matter how big or small the election. Because as women, we worked hard to obtain our right to vote, and your one vote does and will matter. As Abigail Adams once said, "Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could." Voting is a necessary duty as citizens of this great country, America, and not something we should ever take lightly or pass up if given the opportunity. We fought hard for our right of democracy and voting. As citizens, we should participate as often as possible. Although it may not seem like it, your one vote does matter. No matter the level of election, whether it be city, county, state, or federal, participation in voting is crucial. According to nonprofit.org, your one vote can impact who's elected, who has access, who elected officials respond to, and who decides to run for office the next term. All of this is being influenced by your one vote. Who would have ever guessed it? So get out there, citizens. We want you to vote.